The cemetery ground felt harder than it should have in late June, Montana soil baked by early summer sun. Emma Hayes knelt between two headstones, her fingers tracing letters carved into cold granite while wind pulled at her dark hair. In her lap sat a weathered cardboard box, its corners soft from handling. Inside, 247 envelopes, every single one stamped with red ink, returned to sender. Her voice came out barely louder than the rustling cottonwoods overhead. 247 letters, 18 years, all of them sent back. She picked up the top envelope, postmarked April 3rd, 2008, the year she turned 1. The handwriting wobbled across the front, shaky but determined. Emma Thornhill, Cedar Grove Children's Home, 1847 Morrison Street. Wrong last name. That's why they'd all come back. The state had registered her as Emma Hayes when her mother left her at the fire station, wrapped in a yellow blanket with no note, no name, no explanation. Cedar Grove couldn't forward mail to a girl who didn't exist under that name in their system. You tried. Every birthday, every Christmas. You never gave up. The wind picked up, scattering dried leaves across the graves. Emma looked down at the newer headstone on her left, the one she'd commissioned 3 months ago. The mason had done good work. Rose Thornhill, 1990 to 2007. Beloved daughter and mother. You protected me with your last breath. I understand now. Then to her right, Samuel Thornhill, 1939 to 2024. The grandfather who waited. I found my way home. Thank you. The tractor knew. 3 months ago, she hadn't known either of them existed. 3 months ago, she'd had nothing. The memory pulled her back, and she let it come. 3 months earlier, the fluorescent lights in Mrs. Patterson's office hummed with that particular frequency that made Emma's temples ache. Or maybe the headache came from something else entirely. 18 years in the same building, and this was how it ended. A manila folder sliding across a desk, a handshake that barely qualified as contact, a door that would close behind her for the last time. These are your documents. Mrs. Patterson's eyes stayed fixed on the papers between them, never quite rising to Emma's face. Birth certificate, medical records, everything the state of Montana had on file for a girl left at a fire station 18 years ago. Emma already knew what the folder would say. Born March 14th, 2007. Mother unknown. Father unknown. Found at Station 12, wrapped in a yellow blanket that now sat folded at the bottom of the duffel bag by Emma's feet. The only thing she'd ever owned that meant something. You turned 18 3 months ago. Mrs. Patterson arranged the papers with mechanical precision, each sheet aligned exactly. Your time at Cedar Grove is officially complete. The state has arranged for transitional housing assistance if you need it. Information is in the packet. The packet. Emma had seen dozens of kids get the packet over the years, watched them walk out with that same manila folder and the same lost expression. Most disappeared into cities. A few came back, usually pregnant or high or both, looking for beds that weren't there anymore. Is there anything else? Emma's voice came out steadier than she felt. Mrs. Patterson hesitated, her hand hovering over a drawer. Something flickered across her face, so quick Emma almost missed it. Uncertainty? Regret? Then it vanished behind the professional mask. Actually, yes. The drawer opened. Inside lay a single envelope, yellowed at the edges and sealed with tape that had turned brittle. Emma's name appeared on the front in careful, old-fashioned cursive. Not typed. Handwritten. This was with your intake paperwork. We don't usually release these until a child ages out, per protocol. The envelope felt heavier than it should when Emma picked it up. The paper had that texture that came from years of storage, slightly rough against her fingertips. Who left it? I don't know. Before my time. Mrs. Patterson's tone made it clear she had nothing more to offer. The meeting was over. The door was there. The world beyond it waited with all its indifference. Emma stood, the duffel bag strap cut into her shoulder as she lifted it. $47 in her pocket, 3 changes of clothes, a toothbrush, the yellow blanket, and now this envelope that might mean nothing, or might mean everything. Outside, June heat pressed down like a weight. Emma walked 3 blocks before stopping at the bus shelter, her hands shaking too hard to open the envelope while moving. The plastic bench felt sticky through her jeans. Traffic rushed past on Morrison Street, everyone heading somewhere with purpose, while Emma sat frozen between one life and the next. The seal broke easily, old glue giving up without resistance. Inside, a folded piece of paper and something small, metallic. The metal object fell into her palm first. A brass key, tarnished with age, attached to a worn leather tag. Words had been stamped into the leather, faded but readable. Willowbrook Estate. The paper was single sheet, the handwriting matching the envelope. For Emma, when she's old enough. Nobody left you anything but this. Use it when you're ready. The tractor knows. S.T. Emma read it 3 times. Use what? What did a tractor know? Who was S.T.? The key sat heavy in her hand, solid proof that someone, somewhere, had thought about her enough to leave this behind. Even if they hadn't stayed. Even if all they'd left was a cryptic message and a key to something called Willowbrook Estate. She pulled out her phone. The screen was cracked from when another girl at Cedar Grove had thrown it during a fight last year, but it still worked. No data plan, but the shelter had Wi-Fi. A quick search brought up nothing for Willowbrook Estate in the immediate area. She tried adding Montana, then the whole Pacific Northwest. The public library was 4 blocks east. Emma had spent countless hours there over the years, hiding between shelves, reading anything that offered an escape from Cedar Grove's institutional beige walls. Mrs. Calloway, the head librarian, looked up when Emma walked in, and something softened in her expression. Emma, I heard today was your last day. Yeah. Emma's throat felt too tight for more words. Mrs. Calloway didn't ask the questions other adults always asked. Where will you go? Do you have plans? She simply gestured toward the computers. Take your time, whatever you need. The search engines gave up their secrets slowly. Willowbrook Estate existed, but barely. A single mention in an archived newsletter from the Ashford County Historical Society dated 2019. Article about abandoned properties in rural Montana. Willowbrook Estate, 143 acres outside Ashford, formerly owned by Samuel Thornhill. Abandoned since 2012 following owner's relocation to assisted living. Samuel Thornhill. S.T. Emma's fingers moved faster, searching for anything about Samuel Thornhill, Ashford, Montana. An obituary appeared, dated October 2024. Samuel James Thornhill, 85, passed peacefully at Ashford Care Center, born 1939, lifelong farmer. Preceded in death by daughter Rose Thornhill. No other survivors listed. Services private. 8 months ago. He died 8 months ago, and Emma had been 50 miles away at Cedar Grove, completely unaware that somewhere out there, a man named Samuel Thornhill had left her a key. Rose Thornhill. Emma searched the name, found almost nothing. One tiny newspaper mention from 2007. Rose Elizabeth Thornhill, 17, of Ashford, passed away June 15th. Private burial, no other details. The math clicked into place with sickening clarity. Rose died in June 2007. Emma had been left at the fire station 3 days after birth, in March 2007. Rose would have been 17, unmarried, maybe desperate, maybe scared. Emma's mother. And Samuel Thornhill had been her grandfather. The library spun slightly. Emma gripped the edge of the desk until the feeling passed. 18 years. 18 years she'd told herself the story that everyone at Cedar Grove believed. She'd been unwanted, discarded. A mistake someone had corrected by dropping her at a fire station and walking away forever. But this key said something different. This key said someone had been thinking about her, planning for her, leaving her something. Mrs. Calloway appeared beside the desk with a $20 bill folded small. "For the bus. I know you didn't ask, but take it anyway. Promise me you'll call the library if you need help. I mean it, Emma." The word stuck in Emma's throat. She managed a nod, pocketed the money, scribbled the library's number on her hand. Then she was outside again, walking toward the Greyhound station with purpose for the first time in 18 years. Ashford, Montana, 60 miles north. Population 1,200, according to the sign Emma saw from the bus window as they rolled into town 3 hours later. Main Street looked like it had been frozen in 1955. Brick buildings with faded awnings, a hardware store with paint peeling from wooden shutters, a post office that doubled as a general store. One stoplight swung in the wind at the town's only intersection. The bus station was just a bench outside a gas station. Emma stepped off with her duffel bag and stood in the parking lot, suddenly aware she had no idea what came next. Find Willowbrook Estate. But how? The property was abandoned, no address in the obituary. A diner sat across the street, its windows glowing warm against the gray afternoon. Red vinyl letters above the door spelled out Marlowe's. Emma's stomach reminded her she hadn't eaten since a stale granola bar that morning. The $47 in her pocket wouldn't last long, but maybe she could afford coffee and information. The interior smelled like bacon grease and coffee, that particular combination Emma associated with every small-town diner she'd ever seen in movies. Most of the tables sat empty at 2 in the afternoon. Behind the counter, a woman with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun looked up from wiping down the coffee station. "Take any seat you like, honey. Be right with you." Emma slid onto a stool at the counter, setting her duffel bag at her feet. The woman came over with a pot of coffee and a mug without asking, just poured and stepped back with an assessing look that felt more curious than judgmental. "You look like you've been traveling. Where you headed?" "I'm looking for a place called Willowbrook Estate. Do you know it?" The woman's hand paused mid-reach for the cream pitcher. Her eyes sharpened with something Emma couldn't quite read. Recognition, definitely, but also surprise. Maybe concern. Willowbrook. The word came out slow, deliberate. "That's a name I haven't heard in a long while. What's your business out there?" Emma pulled the key from her pocket and set it on the counter between them. The leather tag faced up, the stamped letters clear even in the diner's dim light. The woman picked up the key, turning it over in her weathered hands. When she looked at Emma again, her expression had shifted completely. "Where did you get this?" "It was left for me, at the children's home where I grew up. I think it belonged to Samuel Thornhill." Samuel. The woman set the key down carefully, like it might break. "Lord, you're Emma." The world tilted slightly. "You know who I am?" "Know of you, maybe. Samuel never talked about you directly, but I knew he had a granddaughter somewhere, lost to the system after Rose died." The woman extended her hand across the counter. "I'm Marlowe Wells. This is my place. Samuel used to come in every Saturday morning for 16 years. Same table, same order. Coffee and eggs, read the paper, never bothered anybody. Emma shook her hand, the contact feeling surreal. This woman had known her grandfather, had served him breakfast every week while Emma had been 50 miles away, believing no one in the world cared whether she existed. When did he stop coming? 2 years ago, maybe a bit more. Heart got bad. Moved into Ashford Care Center. I visited him there a few times. Marlowe's voice softened. He was a good man, Emma. Quiet. Kept his pain to himself. But good. Can you tell me how to get to Willowbrook? Marlowe glanced at the clock on the wall, then at the empty diner. My shift ends in an hour. I'll drive you out there myself. You'll want someone who knows the roads. And I'm curious now. She refilled Emma's coffee without asking. You eat yet today? Not really. Then you'll eat. On the house. Can't have Samuel's granddaughter running around Ashford on an empty stomach. The food appeared 10 minutes later. Eggs, toast, bacon, hash browns. Emma hadn't realized how hungry she was until the first bite. Marlowe busied herself with closing tasks, occasionally glancing over with an expression that was equal parts curiosity and something softer. Almost maternal, though Emma had no real reference for what that felt like. True to her word, Marlowe locked up the diner at 3 and led Emma to a pickup truck parked around back. The vehicle had to be from the 80s, faded blue paint and rust spots along the wheel wells, but the engine turned over smooth when Marlowe started it. They drove east out of town on a 2-lane highway that cut through rolling hills covered in dried grass and scattered pine trees. The landscape opened up in a way that made Emma's chest feel less tight. All that space after 18 years of institutional walls. Samuel's daughter Rose left home when she was 17. Marlowe kept her eyes on the road, her voice matter-of-fact. Got pregnant, scared, thought she could make it on her own in the city. Samuel tried to find her, but Rose didn't want to be found. Stubborn, like her father. By the time Samuel learned about you, Rose had already passed and you were in state custody. Why didn't he take me? The question came out harder than Emma intended. He tried. I know he did. But the state looks at a man in his 70s with a heart condition, living alone on a failing farm, and they make their calculations. They decided you were better off in the system. Marlowe's jaw tightened. Samuel didn't fight it. Maybe he should have. Maybe he thought they were right. But it broke something in him. He got quieter after that, more distant. The truck slowed and turned onto a gravel driveway almost hidden by overgrown bushes. A weathered wooden sign hung crooked from a post, the words barely visible beneath years of weathering. Willowbrook Estate. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs as they drove up the long driveway. Tall grass and wildflowers had reclaimed the land on both sides, creating waves of gold and brown that rippled in the wind. Then the house appeared. 2 stories, white clapboard siding that had once been pristine but now peeled in long strips. The porch sagged slightly on the right side, windows dark behind shutters that hung loose on their hinges. But the structure stood solid, the bones good, even if the exterior had suffered from neglect. Beside the house sat a red barn, its roof dipping in the middle but still intact. And there, parked beneath a lean-to shelter next to the barn, Emma saw it. A green tractor, old and weathered, half buried in weeds. Marlowe put the truck in park, but didn't get out right away. It's been empty since 2012. Samuel couldn't keep up with it anymore, and there was no one else. The county probably would have seized it for back taxes if Samuel hadn't set up some kind of trust. I don't know the details. She looked at Emma. But you have the key, so maybe you're the detail. Emma grabbed her duffel bag and climbed out. The June air smelled like dried grass and distant pine smoke. No traffic sounds, no sirens, no intercoms announcing meals or curfew. Just wind and space and the weight of abandonment. Marlo followed her toward the tractor. Up close, Emma could see it more clearly. A John Deere, faded green paint covered in rust and dirt. The tires had sunk into the ground, cobwebs stretched between the steering wheel and the gear shift. But something about it felt intentional, like it had been placed here with purpose. "The tractor knows," Emma murmured.
"What's that?" "The note that came with the key. It said, 'The tractor knows.'" Marlo walked around the machine slowly, examining it. Samuel loved this tractor. Bought it new in 1967, drove it for 45 years, refused to get anything newer. Said if it wasn't broke, why replace it? Emma approached from the side, running her hand along the cold metal. Dirt came away on her palm. Then she saw it. A small metal plate bolted to the frame near the engine housing. Most of the paint had chipped away, but she could still make out engraved letters. S. Thornhill, 1967. And below that, in smaller letters, "For Emma. Always." The world stopped moving. Emma's breath caught in her throat as she traced the words with her finger. For Emma. Always. Her name. Stamped into metal. Permanent. Proof that someone had known she existed, had thought about her, had wanted her to find this. "Oh, honey." Marlo's voice came out thick with emotion. She'd moved beside Emma to see what she was looking at. "He knew you'd come. Eventually." Emma's eyes burned, but she forced the tears back. 18 years of practice at not crying in front of people wasn't easy to break. Instead, she focused on the tractor, looking for what the note had promised. The tractor knows. The seat caught her attention. Old, cracked leather, split down the middle and faded from decades of sun. But the edges looked strange, like it might lift up. Emma grabbed the corner and pulled. The seat resisted, stuck from years of disuse, but after a few hard tugs, it creaked open on stiff hinges. Underneath lay a shallow compartment, exactly the kind of space a farmer might use to store tools or supplies. But instead of wrenches or spare parts, Emma found a wooden box about the size of a shoebox, wrapped carefully in oilcloth to protect it from moisture. Her hands shook as she lifted it out. The wood was dark and smooth, clearly handcrafted, with dovetailed joints that spoke of care and skill. And on the front, a small brass lock. The key from the envelope slid in perfectly. The lock opened with a soft click that sounded impossibly loud in the quiet afternoon. Emma lifted the lid, aware of Marlo standing close beside her, both of them holding their breath. Inside, time had been preserved. A photograph lay on top, old and slightly faded but still clear. A young woman with dark hair pulled back from her face, holding a baby wrapped in a yellow blanket. The woman wasn't smiling exactly. Her expression held something more complicated. Hope mixed with fear, love tangled with uncertainty. Emma flipped the photo over with trembling fingers. Written on the back in the same careful handwriting from the envelope. Rose and Emma, 3 days old, March 17th, 2007. "Your mother," Marlo whispered. Emma couldn't speak. She stared at the woman in the photo, memorizing every detail. The curve of her jaw. The way she held the baby, held Emma, like she was the most precious and most fragile thing in the world. This woman had given birth to her, had held her, had wrapped her in that yellow blanket, and 3 months later, had died at 17 years old. Beneath the photograph lay a letter, folded and refolded so many times the creases had worn thin. Emma unfolded it carefully, afraid it might tear. The handwriting was shakier than the note on the envelope, written by hands that weren't steady anymore.
My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then you found your way here just like I hoped you would. My name is Samuel Thornhill, and I'm your grandfather. I know you never got the chance to know me, and for that I'm deeply sorry. Your mother, Rose, was my only child. She left home when she was 17, pregnant and scared, determined to make it on her own. I was angry then, too stubborn to chase after her. We said things we couldn't take back.
By the time I tried to find her, she was gone. I didn't know about you until after Rose died. A social worker tracked me down when you were about 4 years old and told me you were in the system. She said Rose had gotten sick and passed away when you were still a baby, that she'd made arrangements for you to be cared for, but never reached out to me. I wanted to bring you here, Emma. I swear I did. But I was 74 years old, sick with a heart condition, and living alone on a failing farm. The state didn't think I was fit to care for a child. Maybe they were right. Maybe I couldn't have given you the life you deserved. So I did the only thing I could. I made sure you'd have something when you were old enough. Something that couldn't be taken away by bureaucrats or the passage of time. I put aside everything I could, sold off most of the livestock, and saved every penny. The farm is yours, Emma.
I left it in a trust that would transfer to you when you turned 18. But only if you found this place. I wanted you to come here, to see where you come from, to know that you weren't unwanted. You were loved, even by people you never met. There's a lawyer in town, Warren Pierce. His office is on Main Street. Bring this letter and the key. He'll have the rest of the documents. Take care of yourself, Emma, and remember, you come from good people who worked hard and loved deeply. That's in your blood. Your grandfather, Samuel Thornhill. Emma read it twice, then a third time. The words blurred as tears finally broke through 18 years of walls. She sat down hard on the ground beside the tractor, the letter clutched in both hands, and let herself cry in a way she hadn't since she was small enough not to know better. Marlowe crouched beside her, one hand resting on Emma's shoulder. She didn't say anything, didn't offer platitudes, just stayed there while Emma's body shook with all the grief and relief and confusion of learning that she'd had family all along, that someone had loved her from a distance, that she'd never been as alone as she'd believed. When the crying finally subsided, Emma wiped her eyes with the heel of her hand and looked back into the box. 3 more photographs lay beneath where the letter had been, small ones printed on cheap photo paper. The first showed a baby, maybe 6 months old, sitting in someone's lap. Me, Emma thought. The second was a toddler around 3 years old, playing in a sandbox. The third showed a little girl, maybe 7, standing in a group of children in what looked like a playground. All 3 photos were taken from a distance, through fences or from across streets, like someone had been watching but couldn't get close. On the back of each, in different handwriting than Samuel's, were dates and locations. Emma, 6 months, Cedar Grove. Emma, 3 years, Cedar Grove Playground. Emma, 7 years, school field trip. Someone had been sending Samuel photographs. Someone had been watching Emma grow up and making sure her grandfather knew what she looked like. Who took these? Emma's voice came out rough. Marlowe shook her head. I don't know. Samuel never mentioned anything like this. But whoever it was, they were making sure he could see you, even if he couldn't be there. The sun was starting to drop toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The temperature fell with it, June evening chill seeping through Emma's jacket. She carefully placed everything back in the box and closed it, holding it against her chest as she stood. I need to see this lawyer, Warren Pierce. He'll be closed now. It's after 4 on a Friday. Marlo pulled her truck keys from her pocket. But I can bring you to his office first thing Monday morning. In the meantime, you need a place to stay. I have a spare room above the diner. It's not fancy, but it's warm, and the bed's comfortable. Emma looked at the house, dark windows staring back like empty eyes. Part of her wanted to go inside right now, to see where Samuel had lived, to walk through rooms that had belonged to her family. But another part felt too raw, too overwhelmed by everything she'd learned in the last few hours. Okay, Monday. I can wait until Monday. They drove back to Ashford in silence, the wooden box on Emma's lap and Willowbrook Estate shrinking in the rearview mirror. Emma watched it disappear behind the hills, but something had shifted inside her. She wasn't the same person who'd left Cedar Grove that morning. That Emma had believed she came from nothing, belonged nowhere, mattered to no one. This Emma knew different. This Emma had a name, a history. A grandfather who'd loved her enough to plan for her future, even when he couldn't be part of her present. A mother who'd died too young, but had held her once, had given her that yellow blanket as a last gift. This Emma had inherited a farm, and somewhere in Ashford, Montana, a lawyer named Warren Pierce had documents that would change everything. The room above Marlowe's diner smelled like decades of coffee and frying bacon, the scent having seeped into the walls and floorboards over the years. Emma lay awake most of Friday night, watching headlights from the occasional passing car sweep across the ceiling, her mind replaying everything she'd learned. The photograph of Rose holding her, Samuel's letter explaining 18 years of absence, the mysterious photos someone had sent, documenting Emma's childhood from a distance. Saturday morning arrived with bright sunlight and the clatter of breakfast service downstairs. Emma found Marlo in the kitchen, already working the grill for a handful of early customers. Coffee's fresh, help yourself. Marlo flipped pancakes with practiced efficiency. You sleep at all? Some. Emma poured coffee into a chipped mug, grateful for something warm to wrap her hands around. I keep thinking about those photographs. The ones someone sent my grandfather. Who would do that? Who even knew about me? Someone who cared. That's all that matters. Marlo plated the pancakes and slid them through the service window. Warren Pierce opens his office at 9 on Mondays. Until then, you've got time to think about what you want to do with Willowbrook once it's yours. Emma spent the weekend helping Marlo at the diner, needing the distraction of work to keep her thoughts from spiraling. She bussed tables, refilled coffee, learned the names of regulars who came in for breakfast, and asked questions with small-town curiosity about the girl staying with Marlo. By Sunday evening, half of Ashford knew Samuel Thornhill's granddaughter had arrived, and opinions varied about what that meant for the abandoned farm at the edge of town. Monday morning found Emma standing outside a brick building on Main Street, the wooden box from the tractor tucked under her arm. A brass plaque beside a narrow staircase read, Warren Pierce, Attorney at Law. Emma climbed the creaking steps to the second floor and knocked on a frosted glass door. Come in. The office was smaller than Emma expected, dominated by a heavy oak desk covered in file folders and a man in his late 50s with silver-rimmed glasses and the weathered look of someone who'd spent their entire career in rural Montana. Warren Pierce stood, extending his hand across the desk. You must be Emma Hayes. Marlo called ahead. Please, sit. Emma shook his hand and settled into a worn leather chair, setting the wooden box on her lap. Warren studied her with an intensity that made her feel simultaneously scrutinized and protected. Samuel Thornhill was a client of mine for 23 years. When he died last October, I wondered if this day would ever come. Warren pulled a thick file from his cabinet. He left very specific instructions. If a young woman named Emma appeared with a key and a letter, I was to transfer the Willowbrook Estate Trust to her immediately. May I see them? Emma handed over Samuel's letter and the brass key. Warren read slowly, his expression softening as he reached the end. Then he opened the file and began spreading documents across the desk. This is the deed to Willowbrook Estate. 143 acres, including the house, barn, and all structures. It's been held in trust since 2011, with taxes and basic maintenance paid from a fund Samuel established.
The trust specifies that ownership transfers to Emma Hayes, also known as Emma Thornhill, upon her 18th birthday and successful location of the property. Emma's hands trembled. It's really mine? Legally and permanently. Samuel was very careful about that. He didn't want anyone to be able to challenge your claim. Warren pushed more papers forward. There's also a cash component. $18,000, what remains of the original fund after covering expenses for 14 years. He wanted you to have something beyond just land. $18,000. Emma had never seen that much money in one place, let alone owned it. The number felt abstract, impossible. Warren wasn't finished. There's one more thing Samuel wanted you to know about. He pulled out a geological survey report dated January 2024. He had this done 8 months before he died. The property sits on a significant lithium carbonate deposit. Conservative estimates put the value at $180 to $200 million at current market prices. The world tilted. Emma gripped the arms of the chair, trying to process numbers that seemed to belong to a different reality. 200 million? Lithium is the key component in electric vehicle batteries and grid storage systems. Demand has increased exponentially over the past 5 years. Samuel knew about the deposit. There was a preliminary survey done back in 2005 that showed trace amounts, but he had no idea of the full scale until last year. Warren's expression grew serious. He was very concerned about what would happen when people found out. That's why he kept it secret. That's why he structured the trust so carefully. He was afraid someone would try to take it. Yes, and he was right to be cautious. Warren closed the file. I need you to understand something, Emma. You're now the owner of one of the most valuable, undeveloped lithium deposits in the western United States. People will approach you with offers. Some will be legitimate. Many won't be. You need to be very careful about who you trust. Emma thought about 18 years in foster care, where trust was a luxury she'd learned to do without. What should I do? Nothing, for now. Get to know Willowbrook. Settle in. Think about what you want for your future. The lithium isn't going anywhere. Warren gathered the documents into a neat stack. I'll file the trust transfer with the county recorder's office today. Within a week, you'll officially own Willowbrook Estate. In the meantime, here are the keys to the house. He handed over a ring with 3 keys: house, barn, and what Warren identified as the equipment shed. Emma held them, feeling their weight, understanding that these small pieces of metal represented everything she'd never had: home, security, belonging. Thank you for helping him, for keeping this safe. Samuel was a good man who got dealt a difficult hand. He loved Rose. He loved you. This was the only way he knew to show it. Warren stood, signaling the meeting was ending. Call me if you need anything. And Emma, be careful. Montana is full of good people, but desperation makes even good people do questionable things. And $200 million creates a lot of desperation. Emma left Warren's office with her duffel bag heavier by several document folders and her mind spinning with impossible numbers. Marlo was waiting in her truck across the street, engine idling. How'd it go? It's mine.
The farm, the land, all of it. And there's— Emma struggled to say the words out loud. There's lithium under the property, worth hundreds of millions. Marlowe's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Lord, Samuel never said anything about that. He only found out 8 months before he died. He was keeping it secret.
Emma looked out the window at Ashford's quiet Main Street. Warren said people might try to take it from me. Then we'll make sure they don't. Marlowe put the truck in gear. Let's get you moved into Willowbrook properly. You shouldn't be sleeping above a diner when you own a perfectly good farmhouse. They spent Monday afternoon making the house livable. The electricity and water still worked, maintained by the trust fund. The interior was dusty and stale, but structurally sound. Emma opened every window, letting June air chase out 12 years of staleness. Marlowe brought supplies from town, cleaning products, fresh sheets, basic groceries. As Emma explored the house room by room, she found traces of Samuel everywhere. Books on the shelves with his name written in the front cover. A coffee mug on the kitchen counter like he'd just stepped away. Photographs on the mantel showing a younger Samuel with a little girl who had to be Rose. Birthday parties, first day of school. Father and daughter smiling at the camera with genuine joy. The smallest bedroom upstairs stopped Emma cold. The walls were painted lavender. A child-sized bed with a patchwork quilt sat against one wall. Shelves held children's books, their spines faded but intact. And on the dresser, a framed photograph of a 5-year-old girl with missing front teeth, grinning at the camera. Rose. This had been her room. Samuel had kept it exactly as she'd left it, preserving the space like a museum to his lost daughter. Emma sat on the edge of the small bed, running her hand over the quilt, and tried to imagine her mother as a child sleeping in this room, reading these books, looking out this window at Montana sky. That night, Emma slept at Willowbrook for the first time, wrapped in the yellow blanket on Samuel's old couch downstairs. The house settled and creaked around her, but the sounds felt comforting rather than frightening. This was her house now, her land, her history. Tuesday morning, Emma decided to explore the property more thoroughly. She walked the perimeter, following old fence lines half hidden in tall grass. The land rolled gently, more than she could walk in a day, stretching toward distant mountains. Whoever had chosen this spot had picked well. Good soil, access to water from a creek that ran along the eastern boundary, protection from wind by the hills. She was examining the old barn, noting what repairs it would need, when a pickup truck pulled up the driveway. A young woman climbed out, maybe 22 or 23, with copper-red hair and an easy smile. Hey, you must be Emma. I'm Harper Bennett. My grandmother knew Samuel. Harper pulled a basket from her truck bed. She sent vegetables from her garden. Figured you might need food if you're settling in. Emma accepted the basket, caught off guard by the gesture. That's really kind. Thank you. Mind if I come in? I've been curious about this place for years. Samuel never let anyone pass the porch. Harper's enthusiasm was infectious, making it hard to say no. Over coffee, Harper explained that her grandmother had been friends with Samuel before Rose left, back when Willowbrook had been a working farm with livestock and crops. She'd watched Samuel retreat into isolation after losing his daughter, had tried to maintain the friendship, but Samuel had gradually shut everyone out. Grandma always said he was waiting for something, like he couldn't move forward until some unfinished business got resolved. Harper glanced around the kitchen. Guess you were the unfinished business. Emma found herself opening up in ways she hadn't with anyone else in Ashford. Maybe because Harper was close to her age, or maybe because Harper's curiosity felt genuine rather than nosy. She told Harper about Cedar Grove, about the 18 years believing no one wanted her, about the key and the letter, and the revelation that she'd had family all along.
That's heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. Harper's eyes were bright with tears. And now you have this place. What are you going to do with it? I don't know yet. It's all still so overwhelming. Harper visited again Wednesday, bringing more food and helping Emma clean the house. By Thursday, she'd essentially appointed herself as Emma's guide to Ashford and rural Montana life. Emma discovered she didn't mind. Having a friend felt new and strange and good. Friday afternoon, a week after Emma had arrived in Ashford, she finally worked up the courage to explore the equipment shed Samuel had used for storage. The door stuck, swollen from moisture, but eventually gave way to reveal a dim interior crowded with farm equipment and boxes. Emma was sorting through old tools when she noticed the floorboards in the back corner seemed slightly uneven. She knelt down, pressing on different planks until one gave under her hand. Loose. With some effort, she pried it up. Underneath, hidden in the space between floor joists, sat a metal box about the size of a briefcase. Emma's heart raced as she pulled it free. Unlike the wooden box in the tractor, this one had no lock, just a simple latch. She opened it. Inside were envelopes. Not just a few. Hundreds of them, stacked in careful bundles held together with rubber bands that had gone brittle with age. Emma picked up the top bundle and looked at the address. Emma Thornhill, Cedar Grove Children's Home. Every single envelope was stamped in red ink. Returned to sender. Recipient unknown. Emma's hands shook as she counted the bundles. 247 envelopes. The dates on the postmarks spanned 18 years, starting in April 2008, her first birthday after Rose died, and continuing all the way to March 2025, 3 months ago. Her 18th birthday. Samuel had written her. Every birthday, every Christmas, for 18 years. And every letter had come back unopened because Cedar Grove had no record of a girl named Emma Thornhill. Only Emma Hayes, the name the state had assigned her. Emma opened the first letter, dated April 3, 2008. Dear Emma, you turned 1 today. I've never met you, but I think about you every day. Your mother loved you so much. I hope whoever is raising you tells you that. I hope you're happy. I hope someday you'll find your way home. Love, your grandfather Henry. The handwriting was steadier than in the letter from the tractor box, written by a man still in his 60s rather than his 80s. Emma read it 3 times, then opened another from 2010. Sweet Emma, you're 3 now. Do you like kindergarten? I called Cedar Grove again. They won't tell me anything about you. Privacy rules, they say. But I'll keep trying. I'll never stop trying. All my love, Grandpa Samuel. Emma read letter after letter, watching her childhood unfold through Samuel's eyes. The birthdays he imagined for her, the Christmases he hoped she was celebrating, the milestones he wished he could witness. Each letter ended the same way. All my love, your grandfather. By the time Emma reached the final letter, written 3 months before Samuel died, tears were streaming down her face unchecked. My darling Emma, you're 18 now, an adult. You probably don't know I exist, but I've thought about you every single day for 18 years. If you're reading this, somehow, know that I never stopped loving you. Never. There's more I need to tell you. Check under the floorboards in the lavender room. And remember, the tractor knows everything. All my love, always and forever, Grandpa Samuel. Emma sat on the equipment shed floor, surrounded by 247 returned letters, and understood something fundamental about love. It didn't require proximity or reciprocation. It didn't need acknowledgement or validation. Love could exist in silence, in distance, in the faithful act of writing letters that would never be read, just because the act itself mattered. She gathered all the letters carefully, returned them to the metal box, and carried it back to the house. Then she climbed the stairs to the lavender room and began examining the floor. Near the small bed, 3 boards felt different from the others, newer, less worn. Emma pried them up and found another hiding place, this one containing a small fireproof box with a combination lock. She tried Rose's birthday, April 15th, 1990. The lock clicked open. Inside was a leather-bound journal, worn soft with handling.
Emma opened to the first page and saw Rose's name written in teenage handwriting. A diary. She carried it downstairs, made tea she didn't drink, and began reading her mother's story. The early entries were typical teenage concerns: school stress, friend drama, dreams of leaving Ashford for bigger cities. Then in March 2006, met someone at a party last night, Derek Carver. He's 24, older than the guys at school. Has this intensity about him. Dad would hate him, which probably makes him more interesting. We're going out Friday. Emma's stomach tightened. Derek Carver. The name appeared more and more frequently over the next several months. Rose's initial excitement gradually shifted to something darker. Derek gets jealous when I talk to other guys. Says I'm his. Nobody else should even look at me. It's flattering in a way, like he really cares. But sometimes it feels like too much. By June 2006. Told Derek about the lithium survey Dad did last year. Derek got really interested. Kept asking questions about how much it was worth. Said maybe in 10 or 20 years, it could be a fortune. I didn't think much of it. Just rocks under dirt. Then October. I'm pregnant. I told Derek tonight. He got so angry, said I did this on purpose to trap him. I didn't. I'm 17 and terrified. I told Dad. He was disappointed, said I was throwing my future away. Maybe he's right. I can't stay here and see that look on his face every day. I'm leaving. The entries from Portland were sparse, desperate. Rose working double shifts at a diner, struggling to afford rent, her pregnancy progressing with limited prenatal care. Then March 2007. Emma was born 3 days ago. She's perfect. I named her after Dad's mother. I don't know how I'm going to do this, but I'll figure it out. I have to. The next several entries showed Rose's determination to make it work, to be the mother she believed Emma deserved. Then May. I'm sick. Can't stop coughing. There's blood sometimes. No insurance. No money for a doctor. Emma needs me. I can't be sick. June 5th, 2007. I have to go home. Have to ask Dad for help. I'm getting worse. Emma needs someone who can take care of her properly. Swallowing my pride. Driving to Ashford tomorrow. June 6th, 2007. I went. Drove all the way to Willowbrook. Parked outside and watched Dad through the window for an hour. He looked so old, so tired. I almost knocked. Then Derek showed up. Don't know how he found me. He got in my car and told me exactly what would happen if I involved Dad. Said he'd come back and burn the farm to the ground, with Dad inside. Said he'd make it look like an accident and no one would ever know. I believe him. I've seen Derek angry. I've seen what he's capable of. So I left. Drove back to Portland. I'm dying. I know I am. But I can't put Dad in danger. I can't risk Derek hurting him because of me. The next entry was the last, dated June 10th, 2007. Too weak to take care of Emma anymore.
dropping her at Fire Station 12 tomorrow morning. They'll find her a good home, someone who can give her what I can't, someone safe. Emma, if you ever read this somehow, know that I loved you. Every decision I made was to protect you. I'm sorry I couldn't stay. The diary ended there. 5 days later, according to her obituary, Rose Thornhill died of pneumonia in a Portland emergency room, having waited too long to seek treatment. Emma closed the diary and sat in the gathering darkness of Samuel's living room, understanding finally how she'd lost her mother. Not through abandonment or neglect, but through a 17-year-old's desperate attempt to protect everyone she loved from a man who threatened violence. Derek Carver had killed Rose as surely as if he'd held a pillow over her face. He'd terrorized her away from help, from family, from any chance of survival. And he'd done it to keep Samuel from learning about the lithium until Derek could figure out how to profit from it. Emma stood abruptly, grabbed her phone, and called Warren Pierce. I need to talk to you. Now. It's about my mother's death. Warren arrived 30 minutes later. Emma showed him the diary, watched his expression darken as he read Rose's final entries. When he finished, Warren removed his glasses and cleaned them methodically. Derek Carver. I know that name. He was arrested in 2008 for assault and extortion, served 15 years at Montana State Prison, released in 2023. Warren looked up at Emma. He's been back in Montana for 2 years. Does he know about me? I don't know. But if he's been watching Willowbrook, waiting for Samuel to die so he could make a move on the land, he knows now. News travels fast in small towns. Half of Ashford has been talking about Samuel's granddaughter showing up. Fear settled cold in Emma's stomach. What do I do? Talk to Clay Brennan. He's the county sheriff. If Derek has any connection to what happened to Rose, Clay will want to know. He's been suspicious about her death for years, but never had evidence to pursue it. Warren pulled out his phone. I'll call him now. Sheriff Clay Brennan arrived at Willowbrook an hour later, a man in his mid-50s with the weathered face of someone who'd spent decades dealing with rural crime. He read Rose's diary carefully, his jaw tightening with each page. I interviewed Derek Carver in 2007, right after Rose died. Something about him felt off, but I had nothing to charge him with. Rose's death was ruled natural causes, pneumonia, failure to seek treatment. Without evidence of foul play, my hands were tied. Clay closed the diary. This changes things. These entries show he directly threatened Rose, prevented her from seeking help that could have saved her life. That's at minimum negligent homicide, possibly worse. Can you arrest him? Not yet. This is a diary, not a sworn statement. It's evidence, but not enough on its own to bring charges after 18 years. I need more. Clay looked around the farmhouse, calculating. He'll come here eventually. Men like Derek don't give up on $200 million. When he does, I need him to incriminate himself. You want to use me as bait. I want to give you the tools to protect yourself and gather evidence at the same time. With your permission, I can install surveillance equipment throughout the property, cameras, audio recording. If Derek shows up and says anything about Rose, about the lithium, about threatening you or Samuel, we'll have him. Emma thought about her mother, 17 and dying, too afraid to ask for help because Derek Carver had threatened to kill her father. Thought about Samuel, spending 18 years writing letters that came back unopened, dying without ever knowing his granddaughter. Thought about the emptiness that had defined her entire childhood. The belief that she was unwanted, all because Derek had been willing to let a teenage girl die to protect his future claim on lithium he'd learned about by accident. Do it. Install the equipment. Whatever you need. Clay and his deputies worked through Saturday, installing cameras and microphones disguised as ordinary household items. They taught Emma how to trigger emergency alerts if she felt threatened, how to give verbal cues that would signal them to intervene. By Sunday evening, Willowbrook had become a trap waiting to be sprung. Monday morning, 2 weeks after Emma had arrived in Ashford, everything changed. She was working in the garden Harper had helped her start when a black Mercedes pulled up the driveway, expensive and out of place. A man emerged from the driver's side, maybe late 50s, wearing a suit that probably cost more than everything Emma owned.
When the passenger door opened, Emma's blood froze. The second man was in his 40s, tall and lean, with the hard edges of someone who'd done time. His eyes swept over Willowbrook with calculating assessment before landing on Emma. Something in his expression made her skin crawl. Recognition. Possessiveness. Emma forced herself to walk toward them, aware of cameras recording everything. Clay Brennan monitoring from his van hidden in the tree line. The man in the suit spoke first. "Emma Hayes? I'm Victor Blackwell. This is my associate, Derek Carver. We'd like to discuss a business proposition regarding Willowbrook Estate." Emma's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. "What kind of proposition?" "The kind that could make you very wealthy. I understand you recently inherited this property. I'm prepared to offer you $100,000 for a 5-year mineral rights lease. We handle all the development and extraction. You receive quarterly payments. Very simple." Victor smiled, but it never reached his eyes. "Who told you about mineral rights?" "This is Montana. Everyone knows there are minerals under most properties. The question is whether they're worth extracting." Victor pulled papers from his briefcase. "I've been researching Willowbrook for several years. Samuel and I discussed this arrangement before he passed, but he wasn't interested. Perhaps you'll be more reasonable." Emma looked at Derek, who hadn't spoken. He watched her with an intensity that made her want to run. "And what's your role in this?" "Derek is my geological consultant. He's been studying this property since 2006. He knows its potential better than anyone." Victor held out the papers. "Why don't we go inside and discuss the details?" Emma led them into the house, acutely aware she was inviting danger into Samuel's home. But she needed them to talk, needed them to reveal enough for Clay to act. They settled around the kitchen table, cameras recording from 3 different angles. "Before I consider any offer, I need to understand what you actually know about this land." Emma folded her hands on the table, projecting a confidence she didn't feel. "You mentioned Derek's been studying it since 2006. That's very specific." Derek spoke for the first time, his voice carrying an edge of something dark. "Your mother told me about the lithium survey. We were together in 2006. She was excited about it. Thought maybe someday it would be valuable. She was right." "You knew my mother?" "Rose and I were close, real close. She trusted me with things she didn't tell anyone else." Derek leaned back, casual in a way that felt like a threat. "I tried to help her when she got pregnant, offered to marry her. But she ran off to Portland, thought she could handle everything herself. That stubbornness ran in your family." Emma's fingernails dug into her palms under the table. "Did you see her again after she left?" "Once. June 2007. She came back here, probably planning to beg Samuel for help. I convinced her that was a bad idea, that Samuel was better off not knowing about her problems." "How did you convince her?" Derek's smile made Emma's stomach turn. "I told her the truth, that this land was worth millions and I wasn't going to let a scared teenager and her old man screw up my long-term plans. I explained what would happen if she involved Samuel. She made the smart choice, left him alone."
Victor shifted uncomfortably. Derek, we're here to discuss business, not ancient history. Ancient history killed my mother. Emma's voice came out flat, cold. Derek threatened her, told her he'd hurt Samuel if she asked for help. She died because she was too afraid to go to a doctor. Your mother died because she made bad choices. Derek leaned forward. She chose to get pregnant at 17, chose to run away, chose not to seek medical care.
Those were her decisions, not mine. You're saying threatening to kill my grandfather had nothing to do with it? I'm saying I gave her advice about what was best for everyone. If she chose to interpret that as a threat, that's on her. Derek's eyes went dead. Now here's my advice for you. Sign Victor's contract. Take the 100,000. Walk away and live your life somewhere else. Or I can give you different advice. The kind I gave Rose. Your choice. The room went silent. Emma felt the weight of cameras capturing every word. Clay listening from his van. This man who'd killed her mother, now threatening her in her own home. She opened her mouth to give the signal. The front door crashed open. Clay Brennan burst through with weapon drawn, 3 deputies behind him. Sheriff's Department, nobody move! Derek lunged out of his chair, but a deputy grabbed him, slamming him face first into the table. Victor raised his hands slowly, face draining of color. Clay moved to Emma's side, putting himself between her and Derek. Derek Carver, you're under arrest for extortion, coercion, threatening bodily harm, and we'll be investigating your role in the death of Rose Thornhill in 2007. Clay pulled out handcuffs. Victor Blackwell, you're under arrest as an accessory to extortion and conspiracy to commit fraud. You have the right to remain silent. Derek fought against the deputies restraining him, his face contorted with rage. This is entrapment! Police setup! You can't— Every word you said was recorded. You confessed to threatening Rose Thornhill and to threatening Emma Hayes. That's more than enough. Clay secured the cuffs on Derek's wrists. You should have stayed in prison. They dragged both men out to patrol cars. Emma stood in the kitchen, shaking with adrenaline, Harper appearing from the barn where she'd been hiding during the confrontation. Harper wrapped her arms around Emma and held on while Emma's legs finally gave out. It's over. They can't hurt anyone now. Emma nodded against Harper's shoulder, too overwhelmed to speak. Through the window, she watched Clay's patrol car drive away with Derek Carver in the back seat. The man who'd killed her mother, who'd threatened her grandfather, who'd stolen 18 years of family from her, finally being held accountable. Warren Pierce arrived an hour later with documents updating the trust and ensuring no future claims could be made against Willowbrook. Clay returned to take Emma's official statement, praising her composure during the confrontation. By evening, the house was quiet again, but something fundamental had shifted. Emma walked out to the tractor as the sun set, needing to be close to the place where Samuel had hidden his secrets. She climbed into the seat and ran her hands over the steering wheel, thinking about everything that had led her here. They're going to prison, Grandpa. Derek for what he did to Mom. Victor for trying to steal what you left me. Willowbrook is safe. The metal plate gleamed in the last light. For Emma. Always. Samuel had known someone would come. Had known the lithium would draw predators. That's why he'd hidden the truth so carefully, left breadcrumbs only Emma could follow, created a trust so airtight no one could challenge it. The tractor had known, had held evidence and letters and photographs, had waited for Emma to find her way home and claim what was rightfully hers. She climbed down and walked back to the house, where Harper had made dinner and was waiting. Tomorrow, Warren would finalize the paperwork. Next week, Clay would update her on the charges against Derek and Victor. Eventually, Emma would need to decide what to do with 143 acres and $200 million worth of lithium. But tonight,
She just sat at Samuel's kitchen table with her new friend and ate dinner in a house that was finally, truly, hers. Tomorrow could wait. The future could wait. For now, Emma Hayes had found her way home, and no one could take that away. 3 weeks after Derek Carver and Victor Blackwell were arrested, Emma stood in Warren Pierce's office, reviewing the final documents. The charges against both men were extensive. Derek faced negligent homicide for Rose's death, plus extortion and terroristic threats. Victor was charged with conspiracy, attempted fraud, and accessory to extortion. Neither had made bail. Clay Brennan estimated they'd both spend at least 20 years in prison. You're officially clear of any legal challenges to Willowbrook. Warren closed the file with satisfaction. The property is yours, free and clear. What are you going to do with it? Emma had been thinking about that question constantly. $200 million in lithium reserves gave her options most people never dreamed of. She could sell the mineral rights, take the money, and live anywhere in the world. She could develop the mine herself. She could walk away entirely and let the lithium stay buried. I want to do something Samuel would have been proud of, something that helps people. Emma pulled out papers she'd been working on with Harper's help. What if we turned Willowbrook into a community farm? Educational programs for kids, sustainable agriculture training, fresh food for families who need it. Use the land the way Samuel used it, to feed people and teach them to feed themselves. Warren studied the proposal, a rare smile crossing his face. That's a good vision. Samuel always believed land should serve the community, not just the owner. I can help you set up a non-profit structure. Over the following weeks, Emma threw herself into transforming Willowbrook. Harper moved into one of the upstairs bedrooms, becoming equal parts roommate, project manager, and the sister Emma had never had. Marlowe helped recruit volunteers from Ashford, and more people showed up than Emma had expected. The barn became a classroom and workshop. The fields were cleared and planted. Fences were repaired. A quiet man named Silas Cole appeared one morning with carpentry tools and an offer to help. He was Marlowe's nephew, 28 years old, with carpenter's hands and a tendency to work more than talk. He rebuilt the porch, fixed the barn roof, and constructed raised garden beds without asking for payment. My aunt says you're doing something good here. I want to be part of it. That was all the explanation Silas offered. But he kept coming back, day after day, until his truck in the driveway became as familiar as Harper's. Emma found herself watching him sometimes. The careful precision of his work, the way he listened more than he spoke, the quiet competence that made problems seem solvable. When their hands brushed passing tools, when he smiled at something she said, Emma felt something unfamiliar and terrifying. The possibility of connection, of trust, of letting someone close. But that was future territory. First, she had present ghosts to face. On a cold December morning, Emma loaded her truck with 2 granite headstones she'd commissioned from a mason in Billings. The drive to Ashford Cemetery felt longer than 6 miles, weighted with finality. She'd been preparing for this moment since finding Rose's diary, but preparation didn't make it easier. The groundskeeper had installed both stones as requested, positioned so they faced each other across the narrow path. Emma knelt between them, one hand on each cold surface, and let the tears come without resistance. Rose's stone read, Rose Thornhill, 1990 to 2007. Beloved daughter and mother, you protected me with your last breath. I understand now. I love you. Samuel Stone read, Samuel Thornhill, 1939 to 2024. The grandfather who waited. I found my way home. Thank you. The tractor knew. I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. Emma's voice cracked in the winter air. I'm sorry I didn't know you were waiting. Both of you. She pulled out the metal box containing all 247 letters and set it on Samuel's grave. I read every one. Every birthday card you sent that came back. Every Christmas letter. You wrote me for 18 years and never gave up. That's the most beautiful and heartbreaking thing anyone's ever done for me. Emma wiped her eyes and opened Rose's diary to the last entry. Mom, I found this. I know what Derek did to you. I know you died protecting me and Grandpa. That took more courage than I'll ever have. You were 17 and dying, and you still put everyone else first. Her voice dropped to a whisper. I wish I'd known you. I wish you'd felt safe enough to stay. The December wind cut through Emma's jacket, but she didn't move.
She needed this time with them, this chance to speak across the distance death had created. Derek and Victor are in prison. They'll die there, probably. Justice doesn't bring you back, but at least they can't hurt anyone else. Emma stood, brushing snow from her jeans. Willowbrook is becoming something good. We're opening a community farm in the spring, teaching kids about agriculture, providing food for families, creating jobs. I think that's what you both would have wanted. The land serving people, not just sitting empty. She placed her mother's diary on Rose's grave, then added the patchwork quilt from the lavender room. I'm keeping your room the way you left it, but I thought you should have this, something to keep you warm. For Samuel, Emma left the yellow blanket, carefully folded. You never got to meet me, but this is what I was wrapped in when Mom left me at the fire station. It's been with me my whole life. Now it can be with you. Emma stayed until her fingers went numb and the sun began its descent. She promised to return soon, to keep updating them on Willowbrook's transformation, to make sure they knew they weren't forgotten. Then she drove back to the farm, where Harper was making hot chocolate and Silas was installing the last window boxes before winter fully set in. That evening, after everyone had gone home, Emma found herself drawn to the tractor one more time. She climbed into the seat Samuel had occupied for 45 years and looked out over land that was now hers to protect and nurture. I met someone, she said quietly, as if Samuel could hear. Silas. He's kind and patient and doesn't ask questions about why I sometimes get quiet. I'm not ready for anything serious. Maybe I won't be for a long time. But the possibility is there, and that's something I never thought I'd have. The metal plate gleamed in the fading light. For Emma. Always. You were right about the tractor, no. It held everything. The letters, the photographs, the truth about Victor being a fraud. You hid it all here because you knew I'd find it. You knew I'd be curious enough to look, smart enough to figure it out. Emma's throat tightened. I just wish I could have told you in person. I wish I could have said thank you while you were alive to hear it. She sat in the gathering darkness, letting herself feel the full weight of loss and gratitude tangled together. Samuel had given her everything he could from beyond the grave. Now it was Emma's turn to honor that gift by building something meaningful. Winter passed slowly. Emma spent January and February planning Willowbrook Community Farm's launch, working with Warren to establish proper non-profit structures, partnering with the County Extension Office to develop curriculum. Silas worked inside during the coldest months, turning the barn into a functional classroom with heat and electricity. Harper created a website and social media presence, spreading word about the spring opening. And late at night, when Emma couldn't sleep, she read Samuel's letters again. Not all 247, that would take weeks, but random ones,
hearing his voice across the years, understanding finally that she'd never been as alone as she'd believed. By March, as Montana began its slow thaw, Emma realized something had shifted inside her. The anger that had fueled her confrontation with Derek, the grief that had overwhelmed her at the cemetery, these hadn't disappeared, but they transformed into something more like determination. She would make Willowbrook matter. She would prove that love could survive distance and time and even death. On a warm April morning, exactly 1 year after Emma had left Cedar Grove with nothing but $47 and a mysterious key, Willowbrook Community Farm held its official opening. More than 200 people showed up.
Families from Ashford and surrounding towns. Children excited to see baby chickens and learn about planting gardens. Local farmers volunteering to teach workshops. News cameras recorded the ribbon cutting. A reporter from the Billings Gazette interviewed Emma about the transformation from abandoned property to thriving community resource. Emma stood at the barn entrance with oversized scissors, surrounded by everyone who'd helped make this possible. Warren Pierce introduced her with genuine warmth in his usually reserved voice. A year ago, Emma Hayes arrived in Ashford with nothing. No family, no money, no plan. Just a key and hope. Today, she's giving back to a community that embraced her. Willowbrook Community Farm represents the best of rural Montana. People helping people, land serving its purpose, and the belief that we're stronger together than alone. Emma cut the ribbon, and the crowd erupted in applause. Children rushed past her into the barn to see the educational displays Harper had created. Parents examined the garden plots they'd been assigned for the season. Elderly residents found seats in the pavilion Silas had built, settling in to watch the chaos with pleased expressions. The day passed in a blur of handshakes and questions and gratitude. By sunset, Emma's cheeks hurt from smiling, and her voice had gone hoarse, but satisfaction settled deep in her bones. She'd built this. With help, yes, but she'd been the catalyst. She'd taken what Samuel left her and turned it into something that served others. As the last cars pulled away, Harper, Silas, Marlowe, Warren, and Clay gathered on the farmhouse porch. Marlowe had brought food from the diner. Warren contributed wine. Clay told stories about Samuel from back when Willowbrook had been fully operational. They stayed until stars filled the Montana sky, celebrating not just the farm's opening, but the web of connection that had formed between people who'd been strangers a year ago. Emma stood slightly apart, watching them laugh and argue and tease each other, and felt something she'd never experienced before. Belonging. Not based on blood or obligation, but on choice. These people had chosen her, and she'd chosen them back. Silas found her at the porch railing, 2 beers in hand. He offered her one without speaking, just stood beside her looking out at Willowbrook. "You did something special here." "We did. All of us." Emma took a sip, gathering courage. "I couldn't have done any of this alone." "Maybe not, but you had the vision. The rest of us just helped make it real." Silas pulled a small box from his jacket pocket, wooden and clearly handmade. "I made something for you, for the farm's opening." Emma opened the box. Inside lay a brass key, polished to a shine, identical in every detail to the one Samuel had left in that envelope at Cedar Grove. A leather tag bore the familiar inscription, Willowbrook Estate. I copied it from the original. Thought maybe someday if you wanted you could pass it on. Keep the tradition going. Silas's voice carried something unspoken, a question about futures and possibilities. Emma understood what he wasn't quite saying. Someday meant children. Someday meant a family she'd build rather than one she'd inherited.
Someday meant Silas standing beside her not just as a carpenter who'd helped rebuild a barn, but as something more permanent. "Someday," she agreed softly. "When I'm ready." Silas nodded, accepting the answer without pushing. "No rush. I'll be here." They stood in comfortable silence, watching their friends through the window, and Emma let herself imagine a future where the lavender room might hold a child who grew up knowing they were wanted, where Willowbrook's land continued feeding people for generations, where the tractor sat in its place of honor, holding different secrets for a different time. But that was tomorrow's territory. Tonight belonged to celebration and gratitude and the quiet satisfaction of having honored Samuel's legacy. As the party wound down and everyone headed home, Emma walked out to the tractor one final time. She climbed into the seat and placed her hand on the metal plate. "We did it, Grandpa. Willowbrook is alive again. 200 people came today. Children learned about farming. Families took home vegetables from the garden. Everything you saved this land for is happening." Emma's voice caught. "I hope you can see it somehow. I hope you know it worked. Your plan, your trust, your faith that I'd find my way here." The April night was mild, carrying the scent of newly turned earth and the distant sound of the creek running high with snowmelt. Emma sat in Samuel's seat and thought about journeys. The one that had brought her from Cedar Grove to here. The one Rose had taken from this farm to Portland and back again. The one Samuel had made every day, working land he'd hoped to pass on to family. All of them searching for the same thing: home, belonging, proof that they mattered. "The tractor knew," Emma whispered. "You were right. It knew everything. It held the answers, kept the secrets, waited for me to find them." She climbed down, touching the green paint one last time. "Thank you. For waiting. For believing. For loving me enough to leave me everything." She turned toward the farmhouse, where light glowed warm in every window. Harper would be cleaning the kitchen. Silas would be checking the barn one last time before leaving. Marlowe might still be there, refusing to let anyone else handle the dishes. Her family. Not by blood, but by choice. Emma stopped at the porch steps and looked back at the tractor, silhouetted against the darkening sky. It had been Samuel's companion for 45 years, had carried his hopes and secrets and love across time. Had delivered its message perfectly when the moment came. Now it could rest. Its work was done. Emma went inside, closed the door, and let herself be pulled into the warmth and noise and life of people who'd chosen to build something together. Through the window, the tractor stood watch over Willowbrook Estate, keeping vigil the way it had for 57 years. For Emma. Always. The promise Samuel had made, stamped in metal, had been kept. Emma Hayes had found her way home. And in the process, she'd learned the most important truth her grandfather had tried to teach her. Love doesn't abandon. It transforms. It persists across distance and silence and death. It hides itself in tractor seats and letters that get returned and photographs taken from afar. It waits, and when the moment comes, when the person it was meant for finally arrives, love reveals itself and says, "You were never alone. You were always wanted. Welcome home." Emma carried that truth now, would carry it forward into whatever came next, would stamp it into metal if needed, write it in 247 letters if necessary, hide it in places only the right person could find. because that's what family does. That's what love demands. And Willowbrook Estate, with its tractor and its secrets and its patient faith, had taught her that lesson better than any words could. She was home. Finally, impossibly, eternally home.